Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Imagine sailing across the Atlantic Ocean to build a new life in a distant land, only to disappear without leaving a single clear answer behind. Today, we explore one of the greatest mysteries in American history, the Lost Colony of Roanoke. It all began in the late 1500s when England wanted to establish its first permanent settlement in North America. At that time, Spain controlled much of the New World, and England hoped to gain power, wealth, and new trade routes by creating its own colony. In 1584, an English expedition reached the coast of what is now North Carolina. The explorers were amazed by the rich forests, fertile land, and friendly meetings with some Native American tribes. They returned to England with glowing reports, encouraging Queen Elizabeth I to support a permanent settlement. The following year, in 1585, the first group of English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island. Life was much harder than they expected. Food quickly became scarce, supplies ran low, and relationships with nearby tribes grew increasingly tense. Unable to survive, the colonists abandoned the settlement and returned to England with the famous explorer Sir Francis Drake. Despite this failure, England refused to give up. In 1587, a second and much larger group of settlers set sail under the leadership of Governor John White. Unlike the first expedition, this colony included entire families, women, and children. They hoped to build a lasting community instead of a temporary military outpost. Soon after arriving, the settlers faced familiar challenges. The houses left behind from the earlier colony were damaged, food was limited, and they depended heavily on trade with local Native American communities. Tensions from previous conflicts made cooperation difficult. Only a few weeks after the colony was established, the settlers urged Governor White to sail back to England for fresh supplies. White was reluctant to leave his family behind, especially his daughter Eleanor Dare and his newborn granddaughter, Virginia Dare. Virginia Dare became famous as the first English child born in North America. Her birth symbolized hope for England's future in the New World. No one could have imagined that she would soon become part of one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. John White reached England safely, but his return was delayed by the outbreak of war with Spain. Queen Elizabeth ordered nearly every available ship to prepare for the coming conflict. In 1588, the Spanish Armada threatened England itself, making it impossible for White to return immediately to Roanoke. For 3 long years, White waited desperately for a chance to sail back across the Atlantic. Every delay increased his fears for the colony. He had left more than 100 settlers behind with limited food and uncertain protection. Finally, in 1590, White secured passage back to Roanoke Island. He expected to find worried settlers eagerly waiting for supplies. Instead, he found something entirely different. The settlement was completely deserted. The houses had been dismantled rather than destroyed. There were no signs of battle, no burned buildings, and no human remains. It appeared that the colonists had left carefully and intentionally. White searched every building and every nearby area. Then he noticed a single clue carved into a wooden post. The word CROATOAN. Nearby, the letters CRO were carved into a tree. Before leaving England, White and the settlers had agreed on a simple plan. If they needed to move, they would carve their destination into a tree or post. If they were forced to leave under attack, they would add a cross beside the message. No cross was found. This gave White hope that the settlers had relocated peacefully, possibly to CROATOAN Island, now known as Hatteras Island, where friendly Native Americans lived. White desperately wanted to search CROATOAN Island. Unfortunately, severe storms and dangerous weather prevented the rescue ships from continuing. The ship captains refused to risk the voyage. Heartbroken, White returned to England without ever seeing his family again. Over the centuries, historians have proposed several theories about what happened to the lost colony. One possibility is that the settlers successfully joined the CROATOAN tribe. Some later English explorers reported Native Americans with European features and stories of ancestors who had lived with white settlers. While intriguing, the evidence remains incomplete. Another theory suggests the colonists attempted to move inland toward the Chesapeake Bay, where they had originally planned to settle. If they traveled north, they may have encountered disease, starvation, or attacks before establishing a permanent community. Some historians believe famine played the biggest role. Poor harvests, limited supplies, and unfamiliar farming conditions could have forced the settlers to scatter among neighboring tribes simply to survive. Others suggest conflict with hostile Native American groups or rival European forces may have destroyed the colony. However, no convincing archaeological evidence has confirmed a large battle or massacre. Modern archaeology has uncovered several artifacts that may have belonged to Roanoke settlers. Pottery fragments, metal tools, weapon parts, and English-style objects have been discovered at different locations around coastal North Carolina. These discoveries suggest at least some colonists may have lived beyond Roanoke Island after disappearing. Scientists have also studied old maps created by John White. Hidden beneath patches on one map appears to be the outline of a small inland fort. This discovery has encouraged researchers to search new excavation sites, hoping to uncover more evidence. Despite decades of excavations, no single discovery has solved the mystery completely. Instead, each new clue creates additional questions. The lost colony continues to fascinate historians because it represents the fragile beginning of English settlement in North America. Unlike later colonies such as Jamestown, Roanoke left behind almost no written records explaining its fate. Its disappearance has inspired countless books, documentaries, novels, films, and television programs. The mystery remains one of the oldest unsolved cases in American history. Perhaps the settlers did not vanish overnight. They may have slowly integrated into nearby Native American communities, adapting to survive in an unfamiliar world. If true, their descendants may have lived for generations without realizing they carried the story of Roanoke within their families. Or perhaps the complete truth still lies buried beneath forests, fields, and coastal sands, waiting for archaeologists to uncover one final piece of evidence. More than 400 years have passed since Governor John White stood in the silent, empty settlement searching for answers. The carved word CROATOAN remains one of history's most haunting clues, reminding us that some mysteries survive long after the people themselves are gone. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into one of history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another fascinating story from the past.